Preparing for a Laravel interview? We break down the top Laravel interview questions with clear and concise answers to help you in the interview. In this video, we're discussing the interview questions about general Laravel concepts, directory structure, and important files. We keep it short and to the point, no lengthy explanations. If you want in-depth Laravel tutorials, check out our Laravel framework series. Let's get started. What is Laravel? Laravel is an open-source framework for web application development in PHP. Laravel follows the Model View Controller, MVC, architectural pattern. Laravel provides an elegant, expressive syntax for building modern, secure, and scalable web applications. What is Artisan? Artisan is a command-line interface that comes with Laravel. Artisan helps us with development steps, generating files through command line, database migrations, managing queues, and many more tasks to make the development and management of Laravel applications easy. And we can extend the functionality of Artisan by creating custom commands. How to install Laravel? First, we need to make sure that PHP and Composer are installed on the machine. Then, we can use the Composer command to add the Laravel installer. Use command composer global require Laravel/installer. Then, we can use the Laravel command to create a new project. Try command Laravel-v. If Laravel command not found, that means the executable's path is not present in the path variable. Check the Composer path first. Here the path is .config, Composer directory, inside our home directory. The Laravel installer is in the vendor bin directory inside it. We need to add this bin directory to the path. Use the export command for that, and to load the latest changes using source command. Now we should be able to use the Laravel command. Try Laravel-v. There it is. Now use the command Laravel new, and then your project name, to create a new project. This will start the project configuration or initialization process. You can choose your starter kit from a list. After installation, install npm packages and run npm build. Then we can use command php artisan serve to run the project. For the latest Laravel version, we can use the command composer run dev. What are the most important directories and files in a Laravel project? Open the project in an IDE. The main directory, where most of our application code lives, is the app directory. Inside the app directory, you'll find console, HTTP, models, providers. Inside the HTTP directory, there will be controllers, middleware, requests, resources directories. As the project grows and we add more components to it, you will see more directories being generated. If you do not see any of the directories initially, then don't worry. These directories will be generated when we create relevant components. Then you can find one of the most important directories, the models directory. This contains all the Eloquent models. Then there is the providers directory. This contains the service providers. Then there is the bootstrap directory, which contains the cache directory and important files app, PHP, and providers. Then we have the config directory. This contains configurations for all the parts of our application. Database configuration, file system, logging, queue configurations, and many more. Another important directory is the database directory. It contains 3 directories inside it. Factories for the database factory, seeders for seeding data to tables, and migrations for the database migrations. Then we can find the public directory, which contains our public files and index, and works as the document root. The resources directory contains view files and other related files. Then there is the routes directory. It contains route configuration files for web, console, and API. If you do not see the API in your project, then just run the command php artisan install API. That will set up the API configurations and create the API.php file in the routes directory. The storage directory is for storing files and logs. Test directory contains 2 directories inside it. Feature for the feature tests, and unit for the unit tests. The vendor directory is for storing the package files. .env file contains all the environment variables and configuration that we use all over the project. We can also find the composer.json for the PHP project configuration and package dependencies. Package.json is for the JavaScript code configuration ADN package dependencies. And phpunit.xml is for defining configuration for the tests. How do you use environment variables in Laravel? After the project creation, the first thing we need to do is set the proper environment variables, like project name, URL, database configurations. Laravel stores environment-specific configuration in the env file. The .env file is at the root of the project. We can save values as key equal to value in the .env file, like app name, database connection, queue configuration, cache driver. Use the env function to fetch the value. Pass the key name to the env function. Like here we can just pass the app name key and get the app name value. Or we can get the DB expose port value. But we should not use the env function directly in our code, as the env function would return null when a configuration is cached. Check this. Run the command php artisan config cache to cache the configuration. In production, we usually have the configuration cached. Now, check the value returned by the env function. We get null. Clear the configuration cache using command php artisan config clear. And then the env function returns value again. We already have a detailed article on that. Link is in the description. So, what is the recommended way to use the env function? Make sure to use the env function only inside the config files and get the config value in your code. Here we are setting the db expose port value in the app.php file inside the config directory. We can also provide a default value in case we need it. Once the value is set in the configuration, we can get it using the config function. Use config app.dbexpose port. And it returns our configuration value, which in turn returns the value from the env file. Now, cache the configuration. We still have the correct value. In the .env file, save information as key value pair. And here are a few precautions we should take while setting the keys and values. If there is a space in the value, then enclose it with single or double quote. Otherwise, only the first word will be taken as the value, and rest of the string will be ignored. The keys cannot have spaces. If you do something like db space connection equal to something, then the db part is taken and the rest is ignored. So use underscores in the keys. Do not store any sensitive value in the .env file, and do not push it to the code repository. But you can push a sample.env in the code repository with sample values. We can check config value in terminal using the php artisan config show command. Here is the configuration from the app name. For the testing command php artisan test, Laravel will try to use the env.testing file for the configuration. If the file is not found or any value is not found in the .env.testing, then it will fall back to the .env file. What is the role of the config directory in Laravel's architecture? The config directory is used to manage configuration settings in an application. It contains files for the setting values for different parts of the application, such as general app values, database, email, caching, file system, queue, etc. Each config file returns an array, and the values in the configuration file can be obtained from the .env file or from somewhere else. The primary configuration file is the app.php. It sets the values for application name, environment, debug mode, locale, etc. In the cache.php file, you will find the cache storage and driver configurations. We can find similar configuration for queue in the queue.php. There are other configuration files, and in a large code base, there will be many more files. We have already seen that we can get the configuration value using the config helper function. Now, let's see how we can create our own configuration file. It is very simple. Just create a PHP file in the config directory. Here we are creating a sample.php. In the sample.php, return an array. And in the array, we can set our desired key and value. Here we are setting my custom sample key. To G the value, we are using config helper function and passing the file name, sample, the dot, then the key name. And we get the value from a sample config file. We can check config value in terminal using the PHP Artisan config show command. Like here, we're checking the value form sample.php config file. What is the purpose of AppServiceProvider.php in Laravel? AppServiceProvider.php file in the app providers directory in Laravel is the default service provider that is loaded when the application starts. Its primary purpose is to bootstrap the application by registering services, bindings, and performing any setup that is required at the beginning of the application's lifecycle. The AppServiceProvider class extends the service provider class and contains two methods: register, used to register services, to service container. This is where we bind classes, interfaces, or services to the container to make it available for dependency injection. Boot contains tasks that need to happen after all services are registered. For example, event listeners, model bind, view composers. We will discuss the interview questions about the service provider in detail later. What is the purpose of the bootstrap folder in Laravel? Here are the key points of the bootstrap directory. This directory includes bootstrap/app, PHP file, which is used to initialize the app and load essential services before handling requests. Contains bootstrap/providers, PHP file to list of service providers that are required for running the application. Contains cache directory for optimized configuration packages, services, and route caching to improve performance. How does Laravel's Blade templating engine fit into the overall architecture? Blade templating engine helps to build the view layer of MVC in Laravel. Here are the key points of Blade. Makes it really easy to build the UI layer. Organize the view by combining other Blade files or components using directives extends, section, yield, include, component, etc. Provides directives for conditional and loops like if, else, for each, etc. Provides a way to print variables passed from controllers. In the next video, we are discussing interview questions about Laravel controller and request handling.